Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. My name is Lee Hayward, and today, December 6th, going to be having a live Q&A answering questions and topics of discussion that you have related to health and fitness, training and nutrition, any specific things that you want to discuss related to building muscle, losing fat, and getting in your best shape. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. So let's see, as this is popping on, I know I see several people popping onto the live stream as we are going live here now. And we are streaming from YouTube, from the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. So wherever you are tuning in from, hopefully this is coming through loud and clear and you can hear me and see me. Got Matthew joining in loud and clear. Appreciate it, Matthew. Thanks for sharing that. We have Chris joining in as well. Welcome, Chris. Glad to have you joining. We've got Lee Dunnigan joining in. Awesome. We have Jason joining in from Oklahoma. Appreciate it. Thanks. Awesome. Who else is joining in? As you're popping onto the live stream, let me know where you're tuning in from. All right. And if you are brand new to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat, I want to welcome you. Always nice to have new people joining into the chat. And it's always great to have the regulars tuning in as well. We have Emma joining in, saying, haven't seen one of your lives for ages. Well, have them every Friday, live at 5. We got Ryan joining in from PEI. Welcome, Ryan. Glad to have you joining in. Awesome. Good stuff. Several more people popping on. All right. So we have, who else is joining in? Matthew's from Texas, a regular. Yep. I know Matthew participates over on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group as well. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going throughout the week, rather than just having a one-time chat on Fridays, we have a group over on Facebook. Just search for Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding, and you can request to join that group and keep that conversation going throughout the week. So I know Matthew's a regular over there on our group, as well as several other people here as well. Who else we have? Thomas is joining in. How are you doing today? From Dublin, Ireland. Awesome. I am doing great. On the other side of the pond from Ireland. Oh. Let's see. Are you still bodybuilding and have huge biceps? Well, I never did have huge biceps. At least I don't think they were huge, but I appreciate it. I haven't competed in bodybuilding for a few years, but I'm still working out. I've had a bit of a setback with my training, and I'm actually going to touch on that because I know some of the regulars have probably known that about a month ago, or actually less than, thereabouts a month ago, I had carpal tunnel syndrome surgery. I had the carpal tunnel release surgery done on my left hand, and it has healed up really well. I mean, like, you can hardly even see where it was right down the middle there, and that is healed up nicely. And I have to say, since I've had that surgery, no pins and needles tingly sensation in my left hand. Now eventually I'm going to get the right one done because I still get the pins and needles and the dull achy pain in the right hand. But I've mentioned this before, but bottom line, I've had this for years, and it's gotten to the point where there was some significant nerve damage from carpal tunnel, so I finally had to get the surgery done. And knowing what I know now and how simple this whole process is, I would have preferred to have gotten this done years ago before I've gotten to the point of having the significant nerve damage done to my hands. Because I've been dealing with it and just trying to band-aid it with rehab, doing all kinds of different stretching exercises and different mobility exercises for the hands, and wearing the splints when I go to bed at night to keep the hands open and in a different, that open position so you're not cutting off circulation or impinging the nerves. I was doing that for years and years. In fact, if you go back on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, like, I've got carpal tunnel exercise videos from 10 plus years ago, because this is something I've been dealing with for literally going on probably 20 years. That's when it started. And I was always scared of the surgery, thinking, I don't want to go down the route of surgery, right? Like, I want to try and band-aid it on my own. And I did that for as long as I could, but eventually, it just wasn't cutting it. It wasn't cutting the mustard, so to speak. And when I finally did get a nerve test, the doctor said, yeah, you've got some significant nerve damage here. And if you continue to ignore this and continue to try and just band-aid it on your own, it could eventually get to the point where over the next 10, 20 years, you may start to lose the use of your hands, just from the nerve damage. And I was like, okay, that's pretty serious. So booked in for surgery, got it done. And honestly, it's been a very good process. Like the whole operation wasn't that bad. I mean, there was pain for about a couple days, but it wasn't excruciating. And now I'm pretty much back to full normal activity. Like when it comes to day-to-day stuff, no problem at all. The only thing that I can't do right now as far as training is concerned, like I can't do any heavy bench presses or any heavy pressing movements where I put a loaded barbell or dumbbell or something across my palm, because that still hurts to place pressure on it. Like I can't even do push-ups yet because it just places too much pressure. But pulling exercises, no problem. In fact, today when I was at the gym, I tested it out hanging from the pull-up bar. First time since having surgery. So my hands are strong enough to support my body weight hanging from a pull-up bar. So that's pretty cool. And most exercises now I can do comfortably in most day-to-day activities. I mean, and it's not even been a full month since I had the surgery. So the recovery is coming along pretty quick. And I anticipate, based on what I've been told and talking to other people, within 3 months or so, I should be back to normal mobility and strength in my hand, and then look into getting the right hand done. And then hopefully have this taken care of, have this issue done and over with. So hopefully I won't have any further nerve damage from carpal tunnel. But anyone who's suffering from it or considering the surgery, I would highly recommend looking into it. It's been a very smooth process from my experience. All right, who else is joining in? We have Robert's a regular to our chats. Welcome, Robert. Nourish to Flourish joining in. Pete from South Philly. I have to ask, Pete, what's up with the Nourish to Flourish name? All right, it's an interesting one for sure. It says, I started alternating my barbell shrugs and barbell bent rows between slow with lots of time under tension to faster pumping reps, as you suggested. I alternate per set and loving it. Cool. I like how you're doing that. And those are two different training methods that provide unique muscle stimulation, and there's advantages to both. So sometimes I may do it within the workout itself, or I might alternate one session to the next. Like prime example right now, where I'm going through this carpal tunnel rehab process, I would probably do more of the slower time under tension reps, because I wouldn't want to do anything heavy and jerky and risk causing any injury to that the surgery that is still in the recovery phase. So I'd probably do a slower tempo, more time under tension now. But under normal circumstances, I would alternate it and sometimes do those fast pumping reps, just trying to get as much blood and still get as much time under tension with high repetitions. And then the other method, like the slow and controlled, hold a squeeze, hold a stretch, it's like doing slow motion time under tension. But bottom line, there's multiple ways to stimulate muscle. I mean, and it's all about creating that muscular overload and that tension, creating more time under tension to stimulate hypertrophy. And I'm glad that you've been experimenting it and getting some good pumps from it. All right, let's see what else we have there. Thomas says, hey, Lee, milk is a great source of protein. It's a lot cheaper than power protein. 2 liters of milk every day will go a long way towards your daily protein intake. Your thoughts? Depends where you live. Milk in some places is relatively cheap. In other places, it's relatively expensive. Here in Canada, milk is getting more and more expensive, specifically Newfoundland. I don't know about the rest of Canada. I can't speak for everywhere, but I'm just going to share my 2 cents worth here for the way things are. Grocery prices in Newfoundland are off the charts, and milk is off the charts. So like 2 liters of milk right now, it's $5-6 or more than that. I don't know. It's in the $5 to $6 range for 2 liters of milk, not gallons, liters. That's about a half a gallon of milk is about upwards of $6 in that range, depending on where you buy it from. Like the corner store is going to be more, the grocery store is probably be a little less or whatever, but it's in that range. Now, if that's inexpensive or cheap, I mean, that's relative to you and your budget and where you live and everything else. From a gram for gram basis, more often than not, protein powder like whey protein or similar types of protein powders tend to work out cheaper on a gram for gram basis than high protein food. Because with milk, yes, there is protein in it. I'm not knocking that. I mean, there's absolutely protein in it, but you're getting mostly lactose, which is sugar. Lactose is milk sugar. So in a glass of milk, an 8-ounce glass of milk, you're getting 8 grams of protein, but you're getting 12 grams of sugar. And then the fat content is going to vary depending on whether it's low fat milk or skim milk or full fat milk, whatever. So it could range from, I think full fat milk is 8 grams. Low fat is somewhere in the range of 4 to 5 grams, depending on how low fat it is, because you can get 1%, 2%, and etc. And then of course skim milk has the fat removed. But bottom line, milk is primarily sugar. So if you're consuming milk for the protein, realize, well, yeah, you're getting protein, but you're getting more sugar than you are protein. So personally, I don't drink milk, right? That's just a personal preference. But I still consume dairy in the form of Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. And the reason why I like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese is because it's the opposite ratios. There's more protein than lactose. So when you look at the label of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, and they're both almost identical nutritional value wise in terms of protein and lactose and the nutritional value. So you can kind of swap them, alternate one for the other, depending on your personal preference. I like both, but some people say, oh, I don't like the texture of cottage cheese, but I like yogurt, or vice versa. So you can swap them interchangeably. But you'll get, say, like in a serving of Greek yogurt, 15 grams of protein and probably only 7 grams of lactose. So it's much lower and a better serving of protein. So that's what I use. I love Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, and I use it in a lot of, not only just as it is, but I like to mix up protein powder with it, kind of like make a pudding. A cup of Greek yogurt, throw in a scoop of protein powder, mix it up. It's a nice, like a pudding type dessert. Sometimes I use it for blender smoothies, or use it with cooking, or use it as a salad dressing or a sour cream type topping. So I'm a big fan of Greek yogurt, and I have it regularly. But that's my dairy protein of source, or of choice, I should say, over milk, because milk is primarily sugar. Now, but again, it really depends on the individual and what it is, you're trying to achieve there. Right. But that's my thoughts. That's what you asked. You asked for my thoughts, and I gave them to you. Let's see. Another question here. What do you think's the most overlooked exercise? That could be, there's so many. One, from a fat burning point of view, for those of you who are looking to lose body fat, one of the most over or underrated, overlooked, whatever you want to consider it, walking. Like a lot of people don't even consider walking exercise. They're like, big deal, walking. Walking on a regular basis is one of the best fat burning exercises you can do. And every time I've focused on a serious fat loss phase, I've always done a lot of walking, and I found that it helped. And the reason for that is because walking is something that you can do regularly without breaking down your body, without causing hindrance to your recovery process, but it's still burning fat and calories. And it's actually therapeutic. I mean, it's like active recovery exercise, because you can go for a walk and you actually feel rejuvenated afterwards. Whereas if you do high intensity cardio, like you go run sprints, or you go kill yourself on the Stairmaster, or any type of high intensity cardio, you're going to feel sore and tired, and it's going to take away from your recovery. But walking is something like you do it and you actually feel rejuvenated. So it can actually aid with the recovery process. So one of the things that I recommend for my coaching students, especially those who want to lose body fat, strength training and walking is a great combination. Now, you can vary it up. You don't have to always do walking. I mean, you can do other forms of cardio as well, but walking is so simple. You can just haul on your sneakers and go. You can do it anywhere, anytime. And every time I've gotten ready for like bodybuilding competitions, that was one of my primary forms of exercise for fat burning cardio, was just getting outside and going for a walk. So that's one that's very overlooked. As far as exercises in the gym, there's so many. Push-ups, like basic push-ups, one of the best chest exercises you can do. Pull-ups, one of the best back exercises, and arm exercises you can do, like basic exercises like that. Even just like a lot of people think of, I need fancy machines and lifting free weights and all that. Sometimes just your body weight can be one of the most overlooked things. And it's amazing what you can do with just body weight alone. Even like body weight squats. Like a lot of people think, oh, squats don't count unless you got a loaded barbell across your back. Bullshit. You do high rep body weight squats. I mean, you can get a killer pump in the legs, especially depending on how you do them. One exercise that I've been doing a lot lately for myself, as well as some of my coaching students that I'm training in the gym, is slant board squats. You know, where you have your heels elevated and have your knee or your legs close together, knees together, and just do deep slant board squats. And you do high reps on the slant board, and you're going to get an amazing pump in the quads. Right? Like just pump it out. High reps, 20, 30, 40, 50 reps a set, whatever you can work up to. And just you do that, and I'm telling you, you'll get an amazing workout. You'll get a pump that like unreal pump in the quads. And so it's even probably better than most of the machine exercises. So simple body weight exercises are very often overlooked as well. And the cool thing about those is you can do them at home. You don't even need any equipment or going to the gym. All right, let's see what else we got there. Cool. Nourish to Flourish is saying that is my cookbook's name. Awesome. I'll have to check out your cookbook. I would definitely like to check that out. Thanks for sharing that. Neil's joining in. Neil is a regular to our chats. Says, Lee, what would be your best exercise for rear delts? Want to know better exercises because I really can't feel them on reverse flies and face pulls, but I feel them on my upper back. Thanks. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing because flies or reverse flies and face pulls, it is rear delts, upper back. It works together in unison. It's not like you can just truly isolate a muscle. I know like people say, oh, this is an isolation exercise, but if we really get down and picking at the details here, there is no such thing as an isolation exercise because anytime you do an exercise, you're bringing in multiple muscles to do that exercise. Even if it's just to stand up and stabilize and balance yourself, you're still engaging muscles. So it's not like, oh, I only want to work my rear delts and no other muscle group, or I only want to work my biceps and no other muscle group. It can't be done. You're working multiple muscle groups anytime you move, anytime you perform an exercise in the gym, even if it is a quote unquote isolation, you're still hitting multiple muscle groups. So don't get hung up with that. Like if you're feeling the whole upper back contracting when you're doing those exercises, that's fine. We want to build up the whole upper back. We want to build up the rear delts, the upper back, and everything in unison. Now, if you're not feeling the rear delts and you really want to kind of get that cap to the shoulders, then you might want to try some different variations. One that I found really good for a lot of people is band pull-aparts. Get yourself a resistance band and just hold it straight. I'm going to move your question there so I can demonstrate it. Hold it out and just do a band pull-apart where you're literally pulling the band apart. And you'll probably have to play around with the tension of the band and how you grip it and stuff. But that is one of a great exercise. You do it for high repetitions, a lot of time under tension. And the thing that I like about bands is as you pull it, you really feel that peak contraction. And it's a great exercise. And there's different variations that you can do when you're literally just pulling the band apart in your hands, or you could hook the band around an object like a post or a machine at the gym, or if you have a band at home, you can hook it into a doorway or whatever. And you can even do single arm rear delt extensions with the rubber band as well. There's a lot of different variations, but I find rubber bands really good for high repetitions and getting that good peak contraction in the muscles. And sometimes you'll get a better contraction with band exercises than you will with free weights and sometimes even machines. So that's something you could experiment with. And you can pick up resistance bands at pretty much any sporting goods store. You can pick them up on Amazon as well. Like they're cheap as dirt these days. Well, I mean, you can get a really good set of home gym resistance bands for like $20 off Amazon. All right, so it's something that should be a must-have for, hey, ask Santa Claus for them. Right? If you're looking for a Christmas gift or something, hey, get yourself a set of resistance bands if you don't already have some. But that would be one that I would recommend. And you can even just experiment with different variations of exercises like that at the gym. In fact, what I'd recommend, I've got some videos on YouTube showing rear delt exercises. So just go on to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel and type in like Lee Hayward rear delt or Lee Hayward rear delt exercises or whatever. And you should find some of my older videos. But that was something that I used to really prioritize because it's such a a neglected area, and an area that is often the root cause of a lot of injuries, because most people, when they're new to training and they don't have a coach and they're just going in, they're winging it on their own, they think of, okay, I'm going to do some bench presses, I'm going to do some bicep curls, I'm going to do some abs. What else? Right? Like chest, biceps, abs. That's it, isn't it? And then they see someone, oh, okay, maybe I should do a little bit of legs. Maybe I should do a little bit of back. Okay, yeah, I'll do some of that. Rear delts is like the last thing on anybody's mind, because like it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Like nobody, unless you're into the bodybuilding world or you've been taught this, by a coach, or you've learned it through self-education, nobody even thinks of the rear delts. Like you ask the average person to make a muscle or whatever, like they don't even think there's muscles back there. Right? The old adage, or the old saying people say, when I started working out, I found out that I have muscles I never knew I had before. Yeah, well, that's one of them. The rear delts are muscles you never knew you had before. And the problem is when you neglect the rear delts and then you start doing all the, the chest presses and things like that, and you start working your arms, you end up overworking the front delts, neglecting the rear delts. And this often causes imbalances within the shoulder joint and can be a root cause of a lot of rotator cuff and shoulder problems and impingements, because the muscles get overworked on the front and totally neglected on the back. Right? So you want to definitely prioritize the rear delts. And for those of you who are starting off, make sure that you include it as part of your training right from the get-go. And one of the things I always recommend for a lot of my coaching students, especially when they're starting off, do equal volume of pressing and pulling for all your major muscle groups. So I always think of working agonist and antagonist, which is just a way of saying opposing muscle groups. So if you do a horizontal press, do a horizontal pull. If you do an overhead press, do an overhead pull. If you do a bicep curl, do a tricep extension. If you do a leg extension, do a leg curl. You do an abdominal exercise, do a lower back exercise. Like work everything in balance and proportion. Right? You do a chest fly, then make sure to do a rear delt fly. Right? That's the same idea. Hit everything in proportion, and it will go a long way to minimizing those imbalances and keep things in proportion. Another thing I'm going to mention here for Neil's question before I move on, as your rear delts get more developed, you're going to be able to feel them working more. And this is a common thing for a lot of people when they're starting to isolate and hit different muscle groups, is they say, well, I don't feel my targeted muscle working that well. Like maybe I'm doing a chest fly and say, like, I don't really feel my chest working in that chest fly. Or in your case, you're doing a rear delt fly. I don't really feel my rear delts working. As long as you're doing it with good form and you're really focusing on that squeeze and stretch, squeeze and contract with each repetition, lifting within your means, the muscle is going to still get stimulated. And as that muscle becomes more developed, you will get a better mind-muscle connection. But it's probably going to take a bit of time for that to develop. It's not like the first time you go to the gym, you can instantly contract and isolate the muscles that you want to, or you're not going to get an amazing pump in an untrained muscle group or an underdeveloped muscle group. It's something that takes time to develop. And I can certainly relate to this, because I know when I was in my early days of training, I used to do a lot of isolation exercises and flies, like chest flies was an example. Like I would do chest flies and I said, like, I'm going through the motions, but I don't feel my chest. Now, when I do chest flies, I really feel my chest. I mean, my chest is more developed now. I got a more mind muscle connection. So as you're developing those muscles, you're going to start to feel them more. But in that initial phase, that beginner phase, you may not necessarily feel it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but just continue to work the muscle continue to work the exercise and focus on just progressive overload and lifting within your means, all that kind of stuff. And over time, it will start to click for you, but it's not going to be like an overnight success, right? It's going to be something that's going to develop over weeks and months and ultimately years, but you should see progress over the course of weeks and months. All right, who else we got joining in? We have Art from the frozen tundra. Awesome. Whereabouts is the frozen tundra, Art? Just curious, right? I know we have throughout Canada, there's been a lot of snow over the last few weeks. So I'm just curious, where are you calling frozen tundra? What are your thoughts on Premier Protein ready to drinks? I like them. Premier Protein is actually a very tasty protein drink. And I mean, it comes in powder as well as the ready to drinks. And I've had both and I enjoy it. I find it's one of the better tasting protein powders that I've found. So yeah, if you enjoy them, go for it. The only thing about the ready to drinks is per serving, it's a lot more expensive than if you were to buy protein powder and mix it up yourself. But you're paying for the packaging, you're paying for the convenience. So if I need the convenience factor of it, then I will sometimes get the ready to drinks. But most of the time, I just buy the protein powder and I do it myself because one, it's less packaging, so it's better from the environment. Not that I'm, trying to be some environmentalist snob or whatever, but let's face it. If I don't need to have a container every time that I have a protein shake. I can use a reusable shaker bottle. That's less packaging that's going to waste. So that's one reason. And plus, it's just a heck of a lot cheaper, right? Because that's what you're paying for, the convenience and the packaging. So, I mean, I from the protein powder itself is great, but you could go out and buy a container of protein powder and a shaker bottle, and you can mix it up yourself and have your own ready to drink. And if you want to have it ready to go, so to speak, without having the shake go bad or whatever, or you could have the powder in the shaker bottle and then just add some water to it when you're ready to have it, and then just shake it up and you're good to go. I've done that sometimes. Like like when you're packing your lunch or packing for your day of meals, if you don't want to have the shake pre-mixed and then sitting, especially if it's going to be hot, like especially if it's summertime. The wintertime's probably not quite as bad, of course, especially when you mentioned you're from the frozen tundra. You're living in a freezer already. But if you didn't want to have the shake mixed up in advance, again, just put the powder in the bottle, and then before you're ready to have it, just add the water and you're good to go. I've done that before. So it's a little cheaper than the ready to drink options, and it's just as good. All right. Let's see what else we got there. Oh, we have TK joining in here. Welcome. Let's see. Just a second, guys. Where'd that go through? Thank you so much, TKD Runner. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas and God bless to you as well. Thank you for supporting the video chat. Much appreciated. If you have a question, feel free to ask. All right, what else we got there? It's Art is saying that he loves 000 Greek yogurt. Yeah, one thing I would want to mention, I know, and someone else is mentioning, but cottage cheese with tuna is the best bodybuilding meal. Awesome. You could do that. I mean, certainly high in protein, and the cottage cheese would sometimes take the edge off the tuna. Right? A lot of people mix tuna with mayonnaise, but the only thing mayonnaise, there's no nutritional value. It's just fat and sugar. So if you mixed it with cottage cheese, granted, it's not going to have quite the same taste, but going to have way more nutritional value. So that's something that I've done. Mix it up with Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. Sometimes put some mustard in with it or hot sauce or whatever. Get a little bit of extra flavor to it, and that adds some. It just blands up the tuna fish, because tuna fish, I mean, sure, it's a great source of lean protein, but taste wise, it's not the most desirable. Now, fresh tuna, like if you get a fresh tuna steak and grill it up, I mean, that's delicious if it's prepared properly. But canned tuna, it doesn't even taste like it came from the same fish. Like a canned tuna fish versus a tuna steak, no comparison. And of course, when you look at the price of them, you can tell there's no comparison either, because tuna steaks are freaking expensive. But again, getting back to Art's question there, we were getting about the Greek yogurt. It's not a question, but it's something I wanted to comment on. With Greek yogurt, make sure you're getting sugar-free Greek yogurt, because this is a problem. If you're getting the flavored ones, look at the labels, because most flavored yogurts, they have a lot of sugar in them. But you can get some. I know Oikos has the zero sugar Greek yogurts, and I think that's the ones you're referring to there. That's fine. It has artificial sweeteners and artificial flavors, which, again, they're not going to go down the road of artificial sweeteners and flavors. But from a calories in point of view, there's no calories or trace amounts of calories. So it's not going to throw off a diet in terms of, consuming excess sugar. But if you're getting the regular flavored yogurts, there's probably more sugar than protein. Again, you got to get good at reading the nutritional labels to pick this out. But I personally just get the plain yogurt, just plain yogurt. And if I want to add flavor to it, then I'll chop up my own fruit and put it in. Or I'll add protein powder, like a vanilla protein powder, mix it up. It's like a vanilla flavored yogurt. I get a chocolate protein powder, mix it up. It's like a chocolate flavored yogurt. It almost tastes like a pudding. But that's how I add flavor. If I want to add flavor to the yogurt, is I'll put my own fruit or my own protein powder in there, and I just buy the plain yogurt. And I like plain yogurt itself. I mean, I guess it's an acquired taste for some, but I actually really enjoy it. Let's see what else we got. Emma, please treat us to a double bicep. There we go. Right. My biceps aren't as pumped these days because I haven't been training them as hard since my surgery, but they'll come back. They'll come back. Right. It's only a bump in the road. Let's see what else we got there. Rajnesh, I believe is how I pronounce it. If I'm butchering your name, I apologize. It's not intentional. Rajnesh. I've been following you for over 11 years. Thanks, man, for all your help. Well, I appreciate the support. Thanks for joining into the video chats. And Matthew is saying, I do push-ups as a warm-up before bench pressing, just set a 10 and pull-ups most sessions. Absolutely. Push-ups, and again, this depends on how fit you are and how easy push-ups are. Like for some, push-ups is probably a max effort exercise in and of itself. For others, if you're really good at them and you're of a lighter body weight, push-ups could be a great warm-up. And I've often done that as well, to do push-ups as a warm-up prior to heavy bench pressing. And another thing, like depending on your fitness level, push-ups could be a great alternative to bench presses. Because the thing I like about push-ups, you get a lot of muscle stimulation, a lot of neuromuscular activation from body weight exercises where you move your entire body through space versus just moving your limbs. And there's a lot more muscle engagement because when you're doing a push-up, you have to engage your core and all the stability to balance and stabilize yourself. And the nice thing about it is if you hit failure, there's the risk of injury is very low. Like you're going to be belly down on the floor, but like you're not going to be stapled to a bench under a heavy barbell. Like you don't need to have a spotter if you're doing push-ups. So you can safely push up to failure with very little risk of injury. Whereas bench presses to failure, that's another question. So push-ups are one, again, like I mentioned, an underrated exercise for sure. See what else we got there. Nourish to Flourish. I used to run 7 miles a day and lift. I could never gain muscle. Now I walk my treadmill, 10,000 steps a day, zone 2 cardio, then walk a normal 4K to 5K steps a day to grocery store, etc. Have gained muscle now. Interesting. Now, I don't know if the nutrition side of things have changed in that journey, but it's interesting to note, walking hasn't hindered your muscle growth, but the running did. And that kind of makes sense because running is a very high intensity activity. Now, I know for people who become very efficient at running, the more efficient your body is at it, the less stressful it's going to be. But then the thing is when you get good at it, then you tend to run faster, which makes it even more stressful again. Whereas walking, we kind of keep the pace steady, right? You go at walking pace, so to speak. And it's naturally a lower intensity cardio. So it's getting into what I mentioned before, that active recovery. You're burning calories, but you're not breaking down your body. And that's why it's such a complementary mix to strength training. Like you can do low intensity cardio in the form of walking pretty much on a daily basis and not have it negatively hinder your weight training. And I've done that for years, like competing in bodybuilding. And I mean, I still do a lot of walking now today, but I'm just thinking like back when I was competing and doing my cardio plus weight training to try and burn as much calories as possible, walking was the main form. And I was still able to make gains in the gym, with adding walking. Walking's not going to hinder the progress. So thanks for sharing that. It just kind of goes to reinforce what we were talking about here. Matthew is saying, I mix ready-made Premier protein with my coffee, and it's great. Cool. Yeah. You could literally do the same thing with the powder as well. Like you could add the powder to your coffee and get the same thing and quite possibly save yourself some money in the process because you can buy a container of powder for a lot cheaper than the ready-made shakes. So something you might want to consider. Right? And if you are going to mix in powder with a coffee or even with just mixing it up in general, I highly recommend a milk frother. Right? Like if you're not familiar with it, just go on Amazon and type in milk frother. Like you can pick them up. They're cheap, 10 to 20 bucks. Like 20 bucks would be a really good one, but you probably even get a cheaper one maybe in the $10 range. But get yourself a milk frother, and like it's great for mixing up protein shakes because it's basically a little mini handheld blender. For those of you who are wondering what the heck's a milk frother, but it mixes it up and it'll get the clumps out of the protein powder, mixes it up really nice, and it'll give it a nice frothy texture to it. You know, almost like when you mix up a protein in a coffee, it almost has like a cappuccino or a latte type texture to it because it froths it up a bit, and it makes it really enjoyable. I mean, you could try that with the ready-made protein as well, or the ready-made shakes, but even just adding in the powder to your coffee and doing it up that way, I've done that before, and it's really good. Let's see what else we have. Robert saying, could you mix cottage cheese with protein powder? You could try. The only thing is cottage cheese doesn't have the same texture as yogurt, so it's probably going to be more clumpy, whereas yogurt, the texture of it actually mixes up really well. I mean, I have tried mixing it with cottage cheese, and it still can work. Probably a lower amount of protein for the volume of cottage cheese. It'll still mix, but it's going to be a lot more clumpy compared to as if you mix it up with Greek yogurt, because the yogurt is just going to absorb the protein powder more and have a more consistent creamy texture to it. But you could try it. If you enjoy it. I mean, just because it's clumpy doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like I've done it before, and sometimes I enjoy the cheesy protein clumps, if you will. I know it probably sounds gross to some people, but I actually enjoy it. Right? Yeah. All right. What else we got there? Let's see. TKD Runner 12, Alan Grimes. Hey, Alan, how's it going? See what else we got there. Is it more beneficial to not lock out bench presses for bodybuilding? There's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. All right. I'll explain the benefits of both. When you lock it out, so you lock out your bench press all the way, you're taking it through the full range of motion, and you're getting the full benefit of that repetition. And there's other benefits, just more so than just stimulating the muscles. Like, you want to build up the joints, tendons, and ligament strength as well. And locking it out, you're actually strengthening the joints, tendons, and ligaments in that locked out position. And if you're ever going to consider powerlifting or bench press competition, then you have to lock it out in order for the lift to count. If you don't lock it out, it's not a legit lift. It'll get red lighted and it won't count. So it's good to practice locking it out. But with that being said, some guys, you'll see them, they prefer to do partial reps where they just stop shy of lockout and they just keep that constant tension on the muscle and almost going up and down like a piston without fully locking out at the top. And by doing that, you get more time under tension because you're not getting that little break from the lockout position. Because when you lock it out for that brief second, the muscles, they don't fully relax, but there's a less tension on the muscle and more tension on the joints, tendons, and ligaments. Right. So you kind of get a little mini break when you do lock it out. Whereas if you don't lock it out, your muscles are supporting the load under the entire time under tension. So you probably get more of a lactic acid burn, more fatigue buildup if you don't lock it out and you just keep pumping out rep after rep. So from a hypertrophy point of view, that could be beneficial. But then, if we flip the coin, one of the drawbacks to that is sometimes then you can get so much lactic acid fatigue buildup in the muscles that if you lock it out and do like a little rest pause, you may be able to continue on and perform more repetitions, or you may be able to lift heavier weight, right? So it's not necessarily right or wrong or good or bad. It's just a different way of going about it. And you'll see some guys like to do the partial pumping reps. Some guys like to do full stretch, full extension, full range of motion, locking it out with each rep. You'll see people who've made great progress with both. So again, it's not a right, wrong, good or bad. It's what works best for you. And if you're curious, try both. Try the pumping reps and see if you like it, and try the lockout reps and see if you like it. I've even done both within the same set. And how I've sometimes done it is maybe I'll do 5 pumping reps in a row and then lock it out, take a couple deep breaths, and then bang out another 5 pumping reps, lock it out, take another few deep breaths, bang out another 5 pumping reps, and like kind of like do like mini sets within the set itself. So like 5 or 6 pumps, lock it out. 5 or 6 pumps, lock it out, and kind of do that. And I find that helps to prolong the set and actually get even more time under tension and more total training volume. And so that's something you might want to try as well. But bottom line, I just want you to think bigger and realize, like, don't get caught up in tangled up in the weeds thinking like there's only one way to do things. Like, no, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, as they say. Not that I don't know why anybody wants to skin a cat, but that's the saying. But there's multiple ways of going about a given task. Like if you want to stimulate muscle growth, there's multiple ways of going about it. It's just, don't get hung up in the tactics and the methods. Think of the bigger picture principles. As long as you're training that muscle, getting adequate muscle stimulation, allowing it to rest, recover, and grow, providing that unique muscle stimulation in a progressive overload fashion, you're going to get the results, right? And there's multiple ways to go about that. All right, what else we got there? Spencer is joining in. Says, found you a long time ago, and it's awesome to see you still giving great content to everyone. Well, I appreciate that. Love from Toronto, Canada. Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. We have Greg joining in as well. I'm going to try a protein coffee. Absolutely. Great way to start your day, right? If you're a coffee drinker anyway, and you normally have coffee, protein coffee is a great way to bump up your protein with breakfast, which is one of the harder meals for a lot of people to get adequate protein. So this is a great little breakfast strategy, whether that is your serving of protein or it could be an addition to, because I find a lot of guys, breakfast is one of the worst meals for the average person. Because what's typical breakfast food? A bagel, right? Toast, bowl of cereal, something, a muffin, or shit like that. Like it's just all carbs and very little protein. Whereas if you get some good quality protein in there, then you just balance out your macronutrients, and also you're providing that protein that your body needs for muscle growth, recovery, and in a critical time, because the breakfast, you just went all night fasted in a fasted state. Your body is hungry for protein. It needs it to break the fast and start stimulating protein synthesis, to help that protein turnover. And if you don't provide a good serving of protein early in the day, you just missed a prime opportunity for protein synthesis. So protein coffee could be a way to do that, or a way to bump it up at least. We have John joining in. How's it going? Welcome to the chat. John's a regular to our video chats as well. We have Robert joining in. Says, I do cottage cheese, protein powder, milk, and a banana. That's an interesting combo, but I bet it's a good one. You could mix all that up into a mush and have it would kind of taste like a pudding, like a banana pudding with whatever flavor the protein powder happens to be. But yeah, I can see that working for sure. And you could also do this stuff in the blender, right? Or mix it all up, and it would totally absorb and dissolve. Let's see what else we got there. Are you Mike Israel? No, I don't think so. Last I checked, I'm Lee Hayward. John's joining in. Says, for progressive overload, do you increase weight after you can complete one set of 10 reps, or would it be 4 sets of 10 reps per exercise? I'm not asking that right. Sorry. I know what you're getting at there, John. Both would work. Progressive overload in its most simplest form, it's just doing more than you did before. That's it. Whether it's more repetitions, more weight, more sets, more time under tension, you're just causing the muscles to do more than they did before, better than you were before. That's another way of looking at it. And there's multiple ways of going about that. So if you did one set for 10 reps today, and then let's just keep it simple. You did one set of 10 reps with 100 pounds. Progressive overload could be, okay, next time I'm going to do a set of 105 pounds for 10 reps. That's progressive overload. I could do 100 pounds for 11 reps. That's progressive overload. I could do 2 sets with 100 pounds for 10 reps, or however many reps. Like anything more than that initial set of 10 reps is going to be progressive overload, whether it's an extra set, an extra rep, an extra 5 pounds, or whatever. Anything more than that is progressive overload. And the same could be applied over the bigger picture of your workout. So if you're normally doing 4 sets, I mean, if you worked it up to 5 sets, that's progressive overload. If you did 4 sets of 11 reps, that's progressive overload. If you did 4 sets of 10 reps with heavier weight, that's progressive overload. So it all counts. It all adds up, and that would still count as progressive overload. There's not really a right or wrong way of going about it. One thing that a lot of people will do is they'll work within different ranges. So let's just say you're doing 10 reps, and maybe, okay, you'll build it up. So next time you'll do 11 reps. And then the workout after that, you'll work it up to 12 reps. And then what you may do is increase the weight and then drop the reps back down to, say, 8 reps. So then you're doing 8 reps with a heavier weight, and then you build it up. So then next workout, you're going to do 9, then 10, then 11, then 12. Once you get up to 12, then you can increase the weight again, drop the reps back, and then build it up. So it's almost like you're ratcheting up the weight and the reps over time. That's a great way to do a gradual progressive overload. And it works well for a lot of exercises where it's hard to add weight consistently, because most gyms, the smallest weight increment is 5 pounds. I mean, in North America anyway, like most gyms in North America, the weight plates are in pounds. I know when you get outside North America, it's in kilos. So I don't know what, maybe it's 1 kilo plates, which is 2.2 pounds. I guess that would probably be the smallest increment that most gyms would have. But even that is a lot for some exercises. You know, like if, for example, if you're trying to add 5 pounds to a dumbbell curl, that's a lot of weight. Even 5 pounds to a regular barbell curl is a lot of weight. So sometimes this repetition where you're just building up the reps and then working within a range works better. You could even do the same thing with working within set ranges. So maybe you start off with 3 sets of 10 with a given weight. Then you build it up to 4 sets. Then you build it up to 5 sets. Once you're up at 5 sets, then you can drop the sets back down to 3, add weight, and then start that progression all over again. That's another method of progressive overload. So there's lots of ways of going about it. And it's not that one is right, wrong, good, bad, better, worse. It's just different, right? And the cool thing is these are all tools that you have at your disposal. So you could try one method, and if you really like it and it's working for you, great, stick to it. If you don't like it, it's not working for you, then you can change it up. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually change it up depending on the exercise, because bigger exercises usually work well with weight progressive overload. Like adding 5 pounds to a leg press is not very much. You could probably do that consistently for weeks on end, going up 5 pounds a week for quite a while. But adding 5 pounds to a bicep curl, that's going to plateau very quickly. You're not going to be able to do that week after week. You might get away for a few weeks, but eventually it's going to catch up to you where it's just way too much. So then you may want to go into the repetition and the set progression that I mentioned as a way to get progressive overload with those smaller isolation exercises. But again, these are all tools that you have in your toolbox. Right? Just like a contractor, when they go in to do a job, you know, they've got a hammer, they got a screwdriver, they got a saw, they got a drill, like they got a tool for all the different jobs. It's not like, well, the hammer is the best tool in the toolbox. Well, it's best for some things, but it's not, you know, you're not going to cut off a piece of board with a hammer, right? And you're not going to nail a nail with a saw. So, you know, it's you need the right tool for the job. And that's the way I want you to visualize all these different tactics, right? It's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It's what's the right tool for that specific situation, for that specific job. Who else we have joining? We have J Liv. Hello, Lee. Greetings from Italy. Keep up the good work. Been watching your videos for years. It's helped me a lot. Tips and techniques. Awesome. Well, appreciate you for sharing. All right. Appreciate the love, folks. Lots of bromance coming through here in the video chat today. Awesome. But again, I appreciate the support. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's always interesting to connect with people who've been following my stuff for years. I actually had a coaching call today with someone who's been following my stuff for well over a decade. I mean, just had a strategy session coaching call today, and they came on board with the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program, but been following my stuff for years, but never actually spoke to them. So, I mean, it's just cool to connect sometimes. But again, appreciate that. John saying, calories versus protein for muscle. Well, both are important. protein is the prime nutrient that muscle is made of. I mean, when you look at muscle tissue, of the dry weight of muscle tissue, the bulk of it is protein. Like protein, and then all the water and the fluids that are in the muscle tissue itself. But protein is the building block for all cells and all tissues of the body. So you need protein, absolutely. Calories are going to fuel and nourish the workout. So calories, I guess, when you look at it from its basic form, is the energy. Protein is the building blocks, and you need both. It's not like a either or. It's or is one better than the other. It's both. It's like if we were looking at your car. Well, what's more important, gas or oil? Well, if you run out of either, it's not good, right? You know, if you try to run the car, okay, I got a full tank of gas, but I got an empty tank of oil, it ain't going to work. You're going to blow the motor. If you got a full tank of oil and an empty tank of gas, you're not going to go anywhere because you got nothing to burn. You got no energy. So it's not one versus the other. It's both, right? You need both in order to build muscle, right? Like if you just had protein, but you were in a massive calorie deficit, you're not going to have the energy to get through a good workout. And anybody who's ever followed a cutting diet's probably felt that. Like you just feel like you're running on empty because you literally are if you're in a massive calorie deficit. So you need both. Let's see. Where else? I lost my spot there. Just give me a second, guys. The 2.5 increments are arguably the most important, especially for bicep side delts, yet most gyms don't allow for it. Yeah, especially with dumbbell exercises. One thing that you can get, it's not very popular, but they are available, is fractional weight plates. And even if you go online and search for it, you should be able to find them. You can get different types of fractional weight plates. And the gym that I used to train at a few years back had them. The gym that I train at now doesn't, so I might suggest it for the owner to get them. But fractional weight plates are great for making small increments for progressive overload. So you can get them like a quarter of a pound or half a pound or 1 pound. So you can make all these small increments. So like if you literally wanted to go up 1 pound at a time, you could do so. And that's awesome for having that consistent, gradual progressive overload without that big jump. And you can also get the magnetic fractional weight plates for sticking on the ends of dumbbells, which are amazing. Like they're basically just weighted magnets, and stick them on the ends of the dumbbells. So then if you want to go up by half a pound or a pound or whatever, you could do so. The only thing is they are a bit, for the cost per pound is quite expensive. Like if you're looking at regular weight plates, the cost per pound versus fractional weight plates, it's going to be multiple times more expensive on the cost per pound basis. But the thing is, you don't need many pounds of fractional weight plates to accommodate the progressive overload. You only need to have up to like maybe 4 pounds of fractional weight plates, because then the next increment would be the next 5 pound increment that you would have at the gym. But that's something you might want to look into. And or you can even ask your gym owner, like if that's something they could look into investing in as well. I'm going to ask John if he's going to look into getting some fractional weight plates, or if he's watching this video chat. John, we need some fractional weight plates up at Omega. All right, but that's a good point for sure. All right, who else we got joining in? Billy, he says, thanks for the advice about doing cardio and bulking. I hit the heavy bag for 10 minutes straight, and then the next day I hit a PR on the bench and finally benched 315. However, after being able to do 315, 3 sets, 1 rep, my progress is stalled. I'm getting injured now in my shoulder, elbow, and now my back. Should I do less days of lifting, or should I deload and do some 6-day split and less weight? All right. If you feel like you're pushing the limits now and you're actually getting injured, then yeah, we need to change your approach. I mean, there's multiple ways of going about this as well. Like you could literally, one, heavy single rep work, I would work in a higher rep range for a while. So you could consider it a deload, but it's basically just training the muscles versus just stressing the joints, tendons, and ligaments. Because when you're doing less than 5 reps per set, most of the strain, I mean, obviously the muscles are still contracting under that load, but there's a lot of strain on the muscles, joints, tendons, and ligaments. And the risk of injury goes up exponentially when you're lifting max weight for less than 5 reps. So get into a higher rep range where it's more time under tension. less stress on the body, but more volume, more time under tension in terms of higher repetition and higher volume. That's what I would do. And even probably change up the exercises, like do another chest press variation instead. Even like push-ups. Get good at push-ups. Try to set some PRs for there. Like a good complementary training switch from now, like someone who's just been doing max effort bench work, try and increase your push-up volume. Like shoot for a goal of doing 100 total push-ups or something like that. That would provide unique muscle stimulation, and it would also take some of the stress off those single rep lifts that you've been doing. But this is you got to be very careful with it, because there's that fine line of you're pushing yourself and getting stronger, but then it's like the razor's edge where, yeah, I'm pushing it, but then you can go over the edge and actually get injured. And that's what happens to so many people. I mean, like there's been so many blown out rotator cuffs and torn pecs and you name it, from people chasing the chasing a bigger bench, right? It's the most common exercise for injuries. So you got to be careful with it, and it's a very fine line for sure. But change up the exercise. I mean, obviously, like a deload in the initial phase would probably be good for a week or two. Go through a deload phase, and then when you get back to more serious progressive overload training, try and progress either with a different movement. But I would definitely progress in a higher rep range, right? Focus on that, and then gradually build it up to the lower rep ranges later on. But again, there's multiple ways to go about it. But bottom line, do not just keep pushing heavy single reps, because you're already knocking on injury's door right now. If you keep pushing that, you're going to get injured. You're like, could be a serious one. So we don't want to do that. Right. Stop while you're ahead. And a common thing that I often tell for a lot of my coaching students that I'm working with, we want to keep it below red line. Like push yourself, train in a progressive overload fashion, and strive to get stronger, but don't strain. And this could be a bit contradictory, because I know depending on the sport or who you're talking to, like some people want you to work through the strain. But for general fitness, I always tell my coaching students, when you get to the point where you are grinding out a rep and it's like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And you're straining max effort and the weight is barely moving and you're just grind. No, it's not worth it. The risk to reward for most people is not in your favor at that stage, because that's the point where muscles can start to tear. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. Like I've torn muscle in my back. I've torn both biceps. I've had my share of muscle tears. When you're straining under max effort, like that's the point where muscles can tear and tendons can rip. It's not worth it. Like if the weight is not moving smoothly, like it can move slow, but it has to move smooth. And if it gets to the point where you are grinding and you see some of these crazy YouTube videos where guys are hitching the deadlifts and they're just straining and shaking and everything else, like they're so close to just snapping something. Like their back could just pop, a disc could herniate, a muscle could tear, whatever. It's not worth it, because, okay, you make the lift. Woohoo. Congratulations. You got the lift. But what's the other side of the coin? You blow your back out, or you tear a muscle, or you tear a rotator cuff or whatever. And that could F you up for life. Like literally. I mean, like when guys tear a pec, it's not like, oh, I'll just give it a day or two and I'll be back to normal again. No, like that is an injury that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life, right? Chances are you're going to have a deformed chest for the rest of your life because you pushed that bench press too hard and you blew out your pec. I mean, you go on YouTube or not YouTube, but go on Google and just search for pec tear, and you'll see all these weird deformed pecs from guys who pushed it too hard. Right? It's not worth it. In my opinion, if the weight is not moving slowly or smoothly, like stop. And when I see guys in the gym, like especially my one-on-one students that I'm training in the gym, when they start to strain, I say that stop, rack the weight. No, it's not worth it. Or if we're doing a deadlift, for example, like and they're pulling and start to strain, drop the weight. It's not worth it. Right? If the weight's not moving smoothly, don't push beyond. Like keep it below red line. That's my advice for sustainability, to be in this game for the long term. Right? And I wish I could go back in time and tell that to the younger Lee, because when I was younger, I did not do this. I pushed it above red line to the point where I strained and pulled and torn muscles. And, if I could go back in time, I definitely would have changed my approach, and I'd be much better off because of it. John saying, thanks. Love listening to you. Have so much information. I appreciate it, John. Glad you're getting some value from this. Glad you're getting value from my rants, my rants and my reminiscing. Chris is joining in. Hey, Chris. Says would stay longer, but on a date with the wife. And if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, I'd rather you have a date with your wife than a date with me. So yeah, keep mama happy. The replay will be posted up afterwards. Let's see. Found you through Elliot Hulse about 6 years ago. I'm also a newfie. How cool is that? Awesome. Yeah, myself and Elliot, we did do a video together back in 2020, I believe it was the last time I actually seen Elliot and last time we actually did a video together. But back in the day, we did some, like, I'm talking like back in 2010 or somewhere like that back in the day. I trained at the original strength camp gym that he had in Florida, and then went to his bigger strength camp gym that he had, but I haven't spoke to him since then. Right? But it's cool. I see his videos popping up in my stream from time to time. So he's back at it again, pumping out some more content, which is always good to see. I respect that. Nourish to Flourish says, I have those 1.25 pound tiny plates, so when I'm ready to add weight to the barbell curl, I add one to each end. When I want to be super ghetto, I duct tape one to each end of the dumbbells for chest presses. Hey, I know it sounds ghetto or whatever, but it works. It works. Back when I was training at home in my home gym, I used to rig up ways to do progressive overload that didn't look pretty, but it worked. One thing that I used to do is I would get just string and I would tie washers, just like little metal washers that you would buy at the hardware store. I'd buy up a bunch of them and I'd weigh them out. So I'd have like 1 pound of washers on a string, and I just looped the string of washers over the end of the barbell sleeve. And that was the way, if I wanted to do progressive overload. So, okay, I wanted to go up by a pound. Okay, I have half a pound of washers on each side. And I had a whole bunch of them made up. So like half pound, 1 pound, 1.5 pound, 2 pound, all the different increments. And that was a way of training in progressive overload. So I could focus on, instead of trying to make 5 pound jumps, which was probably too much, I could make a 1 pound jump. And it is much easier mentally and physically to make that 1 pound jump. And then you can make that consistently and frequently, week after week after week, just going up a pound. Like, prime example, like we were talking about increasing the bench press. Imagine if you took a sub-maximal effort and you just went up 1 pound each time. Like if you lifted 200 pounds for 10 reps, or you lifted 201 pounds for 10 reps, physically, you're probably not even going to be able to tell the difference. Like, it's the effort and how the weight feels. It's so small of a difference. You're probably not even notice it. But if you kept every week, you just went up 1 pound, that's 50 pounds over the course of the year, right? I mean, like, that's a huge gain over the course of the year, but it can be done in such a gradual and progressive overload fashion that you probably wouldn't even notice it. And certainly probably wouldn't risk the risk of injury, versus if you tried to make those weight jumps in bigger increments. So I'm a huge fan of, baby weight progressive overload, right? And any way that you can rig it up, whether it's a proper fractional plate or something that you rig up on your own, or even breaking out the duct tape, right? And it all works. Now, I know, like, you go to a proper gym, especially some of the fancier gyms, like, they're not going to want you bringing in your roll of duct tape. But if it's a rough and tough barbell gym, I mean, hey, you might be able to get away with it. Let's see what else we got there. We got a couple more questions, and then I'm going to get ready and clue it up, because we're already past the hour mark there now. Thomas is saying, Arnold Schwarzenegger did so many sets when he was in his prime. That would be overtraining by today's standards. It worked well for him, but probably not for most people nowadays. When you hear all these stories, like, first off, I don't doubt that when he was probably peaking and getting ready for competition, that he did these marathon workouts that they talk about. But you can pretty much rest assured that they didn't do these, 5 hours a day in the gym, 6 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, year after year after year. It was probably for short bursts. When they were peaking for competition, they would do that, because you can't go pedal to the metal flat out forever. like you can go in spurts where hey, I'm going to be put on the blinders for the next 3 months. That's it. I'm peaking for this competition. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get in shape. And if that includes high volume workouts, and so be it. But everybody has to go through a phase where they deload, where they back off, where they come back to a more sustainable, maintainable program. Now, unfortunately, for most people, it's all or nothing. It's like, I'm on this crazy workout program, I'm on this super strict diet, or screw it, there's no workout, there's no diet. So it's the all or nothing approach. And we don't want to get into that, but you have to learn how to dial it up and then dial it back as needed. And I'll just use myself as an example. Like if I'm getting ready for a competition, now it could be a bodybuilding competition because I did that for 15 years as a competitive bodybuilder. I would ramp up my training and ramp up my diet for competition. So, in the final months before competition, yes, busting the ass in the gym, doing the cardio, following the strict eating plan. Like it was laser like focus for the short term. But as soon as that competition was over, then I would dial it back, dial back the intensity, dial back the cardio. In the case of the eating, I would eat more calories, so I was no longer in a calorie deficit. And you have to cycle it. So when you hear the old timers telling stories of like, oh, we worked out 5 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you probably did for a short phase, but you didn't do it day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out forever. Right? No. And I can damn well tell you that Arnold's not training 6 days a week, 5 hours a day now in his 70s. I mean, it ain't happening. He'd probably be lucky to be getting in 3 workouts a week at this stage of the game. 3 workouts for an hour each, probably, and that'd be the max. So I just want to give you some context there, because when you read up the old timers telling stories and you read the magazine articles and the books, like they really sell the sizzle and they make it seem like, yeah, these guys are larger than life. Now, not to discredit what they achieve, because it is absolutely incredible, but everybody has their threshold of how much they can push themselves. Even world-class athletes have an off season, right? They're not going pedal to the metal 52 weeks of the year nonstop. Like you have to come back to deload and come back to normal, right? So just put that in perspective when you're looking at all this, all the glitz and glamour online. All right, guys, I'm going to get ready and clue this up now because we are past the hour and my belly is growling. I'm getting hungry, so I'm ready for I'm ready for my next meal. All right, Billy saying thanks. You're welcome, my friend. Glad to help. The Forced Miner saying, what sort of waist measurement or reference point would you use to determine what you were at contest level of leanness? All right, I'll answer this and then we'll clue it up. I would always track my measurements and my my weight every time I competed. So I knew my waist measurement, like say at 12 weeks out from my last competition, my waist was at this circumference and my skin fold measurements were at this thickness. And I would have it all written out in charts. So then when I did my next competition, I could look at my numbers, my weight, my waistline circumference, and my skin fold caliper measurements. And I would say, okay, am I ahead of the game or am I behind schedule, to know, whether I needed to keep doing what I'm doing or do I need to pick it up a bit or whatever. Like I would use that as my gauge. And the goal ideally was to strive to be better than you were before. So let's just say 12 weeks out of a competition, I had a 34-inch waist. And this time around, it was down to 33 and a half. I'm just plucking numbers from here. I don't have my numbers to know exactly what it was. But if I was ahead of schedule, that was good, right? That's what I'm getting at. Same with the skin fold calipers. Like I would take the skin fold caliper measurements, like usually like 1 inch above the hip bone and then right next to the belly button. That tends to be the magnet where a lot of guys store a lot of body fat. And I would record those measurements as well as the circumference and my body weight. And I just use that as my check, my benchmarks. So every time I competed, I tried to beat and be ahead of the game from where I was the previous time. And if I wasn't, then I knew, okay, I need to step things up a bit, get a bit, dial in the nutrition, get a bit more strict, bump up the cardio. I need to dial it up more intensity here to amplify the fat burning. If I was ahead of schedule, then I could keep on cruising, doing what I'm doing. So that was how I would determine, if I was on track or not. Right. But when it came time to contest level of leanness, the goal for contest is like zero body fat, like no excess body fat. So to put things in perspective, like when I would take the skin fold caliper and I'd like right 1 inch above the hip bone, when I would click, sometimes it wasn't even, the skin was so thin it wouldn't even register on the caliper. Like it was almost like the skin on the back of your hand. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like the term they use in bodybuilding competition, I know this might sound a bit gross to some, but we're striving to have dick skin. Like think of how thick the skin is on your dick. That's what you're trying to get around your midsection. And that was that's the term. They actually use that in the bodybuilding circle term. Like I'm trying to get dick skin thin around the waistline. Like you want zero body fat. That is the goal. Now, do you actually achieve that? No, you never actually achieve it, but that's what you're striving for, right? You want to have like zero body fat. It's not like, oh, I just want to be, I want to be able to see a 4-pack abs. Like, no, that's fat by bodybuilding standards. Like, you want to be like zero fat shredded. So it's not just 6-pack, but you got cross striations and veins and vascularity. Like that's the unsustainable, unhealthy side of bodybuilding. I mean, that's what people strive for. And for full transparency, getting to that level of conditioning is not healthy. It's the complete opposite of health. It's the extremes, but that's the sport, right? And this applies to virtually every professional sport. Like if you look at the top level athletes in any sport, they're not doing it for health. Health is, they're surpassed that. They're doing it for the extremes of performance. It's not to be healthy. Like you look at an Olympic champion, an Olympic, whether that's a sprinter or a marathon runner, a triathlete, a track and field athlete, whatever the hell they are, a football player, basketball player, when they're pushing for world-class performance at the top of their game, health is not their motivation, right? That's not, right? Very often they're sacrificing their health in order to improve their sports performance, right? So, you know, for those of us who are looking for health and fitness and longevity, we're not striving for those extreme levels. All right. So just to put that into perspective for you. All right. With that being said, now I'm going to get ready and clue it up. So glad that you could join into the video chat, folks. Again, I always enjoy doing these video chats. And thanks again for the support. And of course, the replay is going to be posted up afterwards. So if there's anything that you would like to discuss, you know, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to follow up with, feel free to reach out to me. You can send me a message through Facebook. You can send me an email. My contact information is down in the description below, and we can keep that conversation going. So have yourself a great weekend. Have yourself a great night, and I'll talk to you next Friday, same time, same place. Take care. Over and out.